Are you thinking about a career as a professional truck driver? On this episode of Driven Too Far, we're breaking down the pros and cons of truck driving schools. Hello, I'm Andrew Winkler with Chief Carriers, and this is Driven Too Far, the truth about trucking, a podcast that helps over-the-road truck drivers balance career and family. So you think you want a career as a professional truck driver, and now you've got a choice to make about schools. Everyone's required to go to school nowadays. So I want to talk about that a little bit today and talk about some of the three options you have really that are out there. We had a nice note this last week come across Messenger from, I believe it was a young man out of the state of Maine, and he's found our podcast and he just sent a nice note and he goes, man, I really appreciate your podcast. I'm somebody new to the industry. He's currently in a school, I believe, up in Maine. And he said he was kind of bummed that we don't hire out of that area and stuff. But anyways, I appreciate him taking the time to just drop us a note, let us know that he's listening to the podcast and he's actually getting some value out of them. So as a new driver, we're getting close to 100 episodes out there. There's a lot of content out there for especially new drivers to listen and see what my experience has brought over the years and how I can help you by sharing that. So today I wanted to talk about the schools. I got to thinking about that a little bit. There's a lot of people out there that maybe trucking sounds appealing and you want to get into it, not sure what the first step looks like. And I'm going to tell you the first step is finding a school. So the first type of school that's out there, we'll call it a private truck driving school. Probably going to exist in some of the bigger cities, metropolitan areas, but these are privately owned schools that you can go to. And thinking a little bit about the pros and cons of each, the private schools tend to be a little more pricey. They're a little bit more expensive, but with that, you probably get a really good quality education. So something to think about there. Job placement is an important factor of that. Hopefully that school, the private ones, if they're in a bigger city, something like that, maybe they've got some companies that support them or recruit out of them directly. So there's some job assistance. When you go in, you go through the school, when you come out, maybe there's going to be some recommendations of where you want to go that kind of fits your need. Are you looking to stay local or you want to do regional, long haul? What does that look like? They can kind of help steer you in the right direction. One of the advantages I've seen with the private schools is they can be a little bit more accommodating with the flexible schedule. Typically, trucking schools are 4 to 8 weeks long, 6 to 8 weeks long, something like that. And one of the challenges is if you're going to community college or one of the other type of schools, that happens during the day for 4 to 8 weeks length of time. So the question becomes is how do I make a living and keep my job and go through school at the same time? Now, what I've seen some of the private schools do is many times they'll offer a night class. It's probably a little bit more extended beyond what a day class would be, meaning if a day class is 4 weeks or 6 weeks long, maybe the night classes have to go 8 weeks long because they still have to teach the same curriculum and criteria. The other option I've seen too is weekend type classes. So maybe you go every Saturday, Sunday for 6 or 8 hours and knock it out that way. But that's one of the advantages private schools can offer over when you think about maybe the public or the community colleges. The private programs may also offer something that's a little bit more variety. So let's say they are in alignment with some truck driving jobs in that metro city, and maybe it's a ready mix driver or maybe it's a tanker, some kind of specialty truck driving. Those private schools may be more equipped or better equipped to teach you those extra skills you need for some of those types of jobs. When you get to usually the community colleges and stuff, it's a little bit more vanilla, a little bit more vague. They're going to teach you just the basics of everything they can, but they don't typically dive into the specialized areas. Now, the downside to the private schools, like I mentioned, can be the cost. They're all worth checking out. So don't let that sway you away from not checking one out if there's one near you. Go talk to them and see maybe there's some financial options there for you. They can help steer you. Maybe they've even got a partner that's a lender, a local bank or something like that's willing to make a small loan, something like that. So don't let that. Typically, they're a little bit more expensive, I guess, than the public ones. I would warn you a little bit about the varying quality. So while I know there's some really some high quality ones in the city of Omaha in Nebraska, I've also know there's some out west of where we are in another town that don't have a good reputation. They rush you through the process, get you through as quick and as fast as you can. Yes, they're still meeting all the criteria that's set out there that you have to go through, but I don't feel like they really care whether or not the student gets it and they've retained all that information. I think they're just in it for the money. That's really how it feels, I guess, is give me your money and I'll get you a license here in a couple of weeks type thing. And the problem with that is when they release you and you go out and you get a job, you may find that you're not ready to hit the road with that big rig because they didn't take the time to work with you on the details and all the extra things and the safety side of things that you needed. So quality can be an issue. Make sure you check that out. Go in and look at the reviews on their website or social pages, something like that. Surely if somebody's had negative experiences, you'll find something on there. And if they've had good experiences, hopefully they're talking them up and recommending them. A lot of times with the private, there's not necessarily a job guarantee at the end, as there is with some of the other options you may have. So their job is to get you through the school, get you your Class A, Class B, CDL, whatever it is you're looking for. And once they accomplish that, they're essentially done and can move on to the next class. So there's no obligation there, I guess, is what I'm saying necessarily. Now, hopefully they do have a job placement program or some kind of assistance there to assist you, not only right after you graduate, but even down the road. Maybe 2 years down the road, again, you're looking for something different, something new. Can you still go back to that school and ask for that job assistance stuff? That'd be fantastic if they do that. The next one is the public school, and this is typically your community colleges. It just seems like almost every community college now is offering some kind of truck driving program. It's such a popular program. These are great and typically lower costs. They have to make them a little bit lower cost for people to get into them. We partner with a couple different community colleges in our area and stuff. And the reason I like that is we just have a great relationship with them. They come to us. So one of the things that typically happens in these schools is as you're going through this 4 to 8 week class, you've got some classroom time and then you've got some over the road time or, out on the range, they call it, out on the range where you're learning how to shift and learning how to back and stuff in a safe environment. But a lot of times the truck lines that want to recruit you, they want you to come work for them when you're out of school. They're going to finish your training process, stuff like that. They'll send recruiters into the schools, which is fantastic. But the downside to that is you get a 30-minute PowerPoint presentation from that truck line, and they're telling you how great they are and showing you pictures of, nice looking equipment and stuff like that and telling you they're family friendly and they're all these things, which hopefully they are. But it's a better idea, and I like the relationship we have because they actually bring the students to us. They come to our terminal, and we make a deal out of it. We get them for a half a day. So we welcome in the morning. One of the things we do is we sit down and talk to them a little bit, get to know each student. What are you looking for? Are you looking for local, long haul? How did you get into it? Do you have a parent or somebody like that that's been in trucking that, maybe you're coming off the farm, whatever that looks like, what motivates you? So we get to know them a little bit. In our case, we take them on a tour of our facility so they get to see everything in action. It's not a PowerPoint presentation. They're actually physically walking through dispatch, through safety, through the maintenance shop. And we're a flatbed carrier, so we have to go the extra mile and teach people how to tie down and go through securement training on the flatbed stuff. So we actually put a demo on for them. We'll bring in a real load off our yard, and our local trainer will spend probably a good hour of kind of talking them through how to tie it down. Now, they're not actually tying it down, but it's a demonstration of how many chains, how many straps do you need to have, and those type of things. How do you know the weight distribution of everything? So we talk them through some of that stuff. And I think the students get way more out of that. It's like a field trip, right? They get way more out of that because it's hands-on, it's physical. They get to see it. And not only that, is they get to interact with some of the people in our office of what it's really like to talk to a dispatcher or something like that. And probably you've not been exposed to any of that up to this point. So anyways, the idea of bringing the students to us where we can spend a half day with them, give them a demo, live demo, get them introductions, talk to them a little bit and just figure out what they're really after. And then we happen to feed them after that. We'll buy pizza or throw some burgers on the grill type thing. They just get a feel for who we are. And I always tell them, I always introduce myself and kind of talk to them. And I said, listen, I was in your shoes 30 years ago. In 1995, I went through truck driving school. That's how I got my start. And their eyes usually light up like, really? So we talk them about, just because you're going through truck driving school now doesn't mean you always have to drive a truck. There is so many pathways that's going to open up for you in the transportation and logistics world. So they're usually pretty eager to hear those stories. I think that helps them, think about what the future could look like, and they're making a good choice. We mentioned the affordability with the public schools. There could be financial aid available. I'm not sure that's going to happen everywhere. Just because it's in the community college, there may or may not be financial aid. Now, I know in the past, the truck driving programs were considered a certificate program versus a degree. And the certificate programs in the past, at least, were not eligible for like financial aid. So that'll just be a question when you're out there checking things out. You have to make sure you ask those types of questions. Hopefully today they figured it out. They figured out a way to get that student financial aid to help them cover the cost of that. Sponsorships can be an option, so that might be something you look into. Sometimes the carriers that go in and recruit out of those particular schools will also, they may sponsor you and pay for the cost up front, or they may do a tuition reimbursement type program, meaning you graduate from school, show me that you can do it, get out, get your CDL. You come to us, we're going to put you through what we call a finishing program. We're going to set you up with a trainer for probably another 4 to 6 weeks, something like that. You'll be riding in the same truck with them for that amount of time. And we know the school taught you the skills on how to handle the truck, but what you don't have is the real life skills, what it's like to run up and down the interstate. How do you turn into a truck stop and fuel? How do you park at night? How do you interact with those shippers and receivers with all the paperwork that you have to do? Many times the schools, what they won't teach you is they'll cover hours of service and the regulations so you know the rules, but they may not, they're probably teaching you on paper logbooks still. What they don't have is the electronic logbooks, because there's so many different companies out there that supply the electronic logging devices. They really don't have a way of teaching you that, because they have no idea when you go to work for a carrier, which electronic log device are they going to have? They don't know that. So they just kind of skip over it. And then that's left up to the carrier that does the finishing program with you. So that's something you're going to learn from your trainer while you're on the road. But what I was telling you was the sponsorship program. So you get out of school, you agree to go to work for this carrier. And as you're going through the training program, and maybe that whole first year, once you go solo and stuff like that, the carrier will start reimbursing you so much money per week, per month, whatever that looks like, their particular agreement, to kind of pay you back for that schooling. So at the end of that, maybe that first year, you may have earned all that back, and technically the school didn't really cost you anything. So that's a great thing to ask about and look for as well. When you start talking to schools, ask them if they work with carriers that either sponsor or do tuition reimbursement. Now, the downside to the public schools, like we said, there may be larger class sizes just because it is a public school. The two that we work with aren't that large. And I would say, maybe 8 is the largest classes I've seen. I'm sure when you get into the metro areas and some of those schools and stuff, they could get larger for sure. But just understand, the larger the class, they may or may not have enough equipment, enough trucks out in the yard or the range to work on. You may have to share a little more. Maybe you don't get as much hands-on time and training that you need, or one-on-one with the instructors. So that might be something you need to weigh out. that might be an advantage to the private schools, and maybe a little smaller class size, and you get a little more one-on-one instruction. Less flexibility probably with the public schools, the community colleges, I guess. They're probably a Monday through Friday type thing, 8 to 3 in the afternoon. So the schedule is the schedule. Are there some that can do weekend night classes? Sure. Maybe in the bigger cities, they can offer stuff like that. But generally speaking, it's probably a little less flexible type schedule. And then, like I said, limited specialization, where we talked like the private schools may have an agreement with some local businesses where they teach a few extra things, kind of the specialized trucks. The public ones probably are not going to take that deep of a dive into it. So consider that. The third and last kind of school out there is the carrier-sponsored schools. So this has become a bigger deal over the last probably 5 to 10 years. Larger truck lines, in a lot of cases, are starting their own schools in-house, where we used to go and we used to send them to the community colleges and then kind of bring them back and finish their training. Now a lot of carriers are finding out, we're just going to take you from day one. We're going to help you from that first day, get your CDL, and we're not going to charge you for that. But the agreement is you have to come to work for us for maybe 1 or 2 years, something like that. So if money's an option and you can't get the financial aid and you don't have the cash to pay for school up front, this might be an avenue that you look at. So as you're researching carriers in your area, see if they have a training program, see if they have their own CDL school. Quite a few of the bigger ones do. And even if you have to kind of make a sacrifice, maybe you don't want to work for one of the large mega carriers out there, maybe you got to do it for a year. Maybe you got to do it for 2 years, something like that. If that's your way to get into the business, so be it. That's what you got to do. The good thing about that is I think they're really going to take the time. The carriers take all the risk. So they're going to have a pretty solid program to bring you in. You're going to get a good education by doing that, I believe. The other thing is you have built-in job, right? So a little job security, where if you go into the other schools, you got to go find a job after that and figure out what you want to do. This way you already know that as long as you're passing the classes and stuff as you go through, they're going to put you in a truck. They're going to have something ready for you. So you got a little job security there, and that's a plus. They may pay you for the time, the training while you're there. That might be an advantage. That might be the thing that sways you, where you're going to the private or public schools and you have to essentially quit your job and take that 4 to 6 weeks off to go through the training program with no income. This might be different at the carrier sponsored. So ask them that. You guys have your own school. Do you pay me while I'm in school? So at least you can continue to support your bills and take care of your responsibilities at home. So that would definitely be an advantage. I think that's why a lot of people do go to the carrier sponsored schools, is because there's income the whole time you're going through the training process. The downside to the carrier schools is you don't have options, right? Once you graduate, you're going to work for them. So hopefully you've done your research up front and you've picked somebody that's a quality carrier. Listen, there's some carriers out there that don't have the best reputations. I don't know if they really deserve that or not. Most of these carriers have been around a long time and they're big for a reason. So they're doing something right. So maybe just take your time and do a lot of the research, look at the recommendations, see if you can talk to somebody that's been through the program. What you're really looking for is, am I going to get a quality education? You want to make sure that they're going to do everything they can to make sure they put you out there when you give that CDL, make sure you're safe on the road for yourself and others, and that they're going to treat you fair, at least give you a fair wage. One of the other things is, some potential exploitation. Again, you don't have a lot of choice. So if you pick a carrier that does reefer freight, and that's what they do, and you don't really like reefer freight, and you don't like delivering at grocery warehouses at 2 a.m, then that might not be the carrier for you. You might want to find somebody that does dry van movements or something different, or flatbed, something like that. But you got to take all that into consideration. What should you look for? What should you look out for when you're vetting schools and checking out your options? Accreditation. Is there something on their website that says they're accredited somehow? Who are they affiliated with? That's the good thing about the community colleges. They're probably accredited and have got a good reputation to make sure they get you through the process. The private schools, you got to watch out because, like I said, there's some really good ones out there, and then there's some fly-by-night type operations that all they want is your money, and they're going to push you through as fast as they can. They don't necessarily care about the skills you came out with on the other side. So watch out for that. Now, with that said, a couple years ago, every truck driving school is supposed to be putting you through the same or similar curriculum. So truck driving schools had to go register with the government, and they have to follow a certain curriculum. So everybody's being taught the same things. I think it's a question of, some of these are how fast are they teaching it to you, and were you able to retain it? Did you hold on to it? Did they spend enough time on it for you, or were they just too busy pushing you through? But it's supposed to be everybody's supposed to go through the same curriculum so that when you get that CDL, essentially all drivers had the same or very similar training. You might ask, the schools, when I'm thinking about equipment, what kind of equipment do they have? Is it quality equipment? In the schools, it's kind of temporary. It's 4 to 6 weeks. Can you get by? There may be some older trucks. A lot of times trucking companies make donations to schools. Like, here's some older trucks or here's some older trailers you can use for your training purposes. Stuff they take out of the fleet that's just not really technically roadworthy anymore. But you could put up with that for a few weeks if the equipment's a little bit older. It's had a lot of students through it. It could be a little beat up, stuff like that. But if you go to a carrier-sponsored school, check them out. What kind of equipment do they have? What kind of equipment are you going to get once you go solo? Because you're committed to them and going to be stuck with them for a year or two, you want to make sure that, they really have quality equipment. It's safe equipment. They maintain it, take care of it, all those things. Make sure you're reading the online reviews from students that have been through the school process. You know how to do that. Go through the Google, go through the social media reviews, things like that. But take the time to vet them properly and make sure you're making a good choice. And then if you narrow it down to, maybe a couple options, go visit them. That's even better. Go visit them. Can you sit through part of a class per day so you kind of get to see the energy and the activity of what's going on? Will they give you a tour of the facility, that type of stuff? Meet some of the people, meet the instructors. What are the instructors going to be like? Are they people that, they're intelligent and they want you to learn and they want you to do it the right way and they're invested in your success when it comes out? Or are they just old washed up, truck drivers that needed off the road and found a job as a teacher and don't really care what kind of education you're getting? But you'll get that. But take the time to go visit the school if you can. And then that's probably it. Ask a lot of questions when you go visit, compare it. Don't rush into it. I always kind of nerd out and make myself a spreadsheet when I'm doing those kind of things, comparisons, and put them side to side. And it's about, again, just like any job, is making sure you find the right fit for you. So take your time, get it right, ask a lot of questions, and man, I wish you luck. I'm excited you're thinking about it, and I hope you do. I hope you take that step forward and take that first step into your trucking career. And if there's anything we can ever do at Chief Carriers for you, please don't hesitate to reach out. Like I say, when the students come visit us, when they take a tour of our facility, that's probably the one thing I leave them with. I say, listen, I don't care if any of you want to be flatbed or you're interested in Chief Carriers or not. I typically hand them a business card, and I said, if you need something or have a question, call me. I'm here to help everybody. So that's the purpose of the podcast, but I'll go further than that, and I'll give them a business card, and so they have my personal number and stuff too. There's nothing worse in the industry than when people get off on the wrong foot, and then they don't have a good feeling about the career. But I'm telling you, trucking can be an amazing career, regardless of what you want to do with it, whether you just want to drive and get out and see the country and make good money, or if you want that to be a stepping stone into something else, as you come into in the office and you want to be a safety professional or work in operations or maintenance, whatever that looks like. But I'm here to help you. If I can ever answer any kind of questions for you or kind of steer you in the right way, happy to do that. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Driven Too Far. If you're kicking around the idea of going to truck driving school, see our recommended partners in the show notes.